Another live show. We are ready for air. Chev's got the build, but I've got the hair.
It's Thanksgiving next weekend in Canada, at least. Are you a turkey guy, Nasty, or do you prefer the roast beast?
But there will be no Alberta teams represented in a postseason race. It's been 80 years since that's happened, and that is quite the disgrace.
Amazon Prime is on fire with their new NHL show. We get to see behind the scenes in that playoff curtain and watch their playoff beards grow.
Would you drive in a cab if there was no driver for your trip? And whatever the service, do you still need to tip?
We just changed it up. We opened with our 300-pound rhyme. The ride is our show, and this is our time.
Let's do it, Trey. Welcome, everybody, to The Ride, episode 46. This is, and we've got a good one for you tonight here as we're entering into the Thanksgiving season. But before we begin, as always, we have to give our love to our sponsors that make this possible. Performance Freight Management, delivering freight solutions to countries across North America and around the world. And We Drone Real Estate Media, the one-stop listing shop for Calgary realtors.
And you know what, Sheldon? Daryl, who is our producer, our executive producer, as we call him. He's also Performance Freight Management. Every week he asks us the number. Do you got a 46? Because I got
you know what? I didn't do my homework this week. Let me see if I can come up with one here quickly.
Well, I did, of the Calgary Stampeders, former teammate, and I spoke at his high school banquet before he was my teammate, Charlie Power, number 46. But you know what? He's actually not the most, I don't have it queued up. He's not the most interestingly named 46 for the Stampeders. There was a guy with a really cool name, but I don't have it now, so it's probably not that interesting. But Charlie Power, I spoke at his high school banquet, and he became my teammate. So that's the 46 in honor of our 46th episode. Guys, thanks for joining the show. I see lots of you on in the comments. Nasty, we changed it up a little bit. We figured, you know what?
Yeah.
The poem kind of tells the story of what we're going to talk about today. And we want to keep it light. We want to keep it tight. We want to keep it right. And we're doing it tonight. So I'm happy to be here. Sheldon, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. And in fact, this week we're heading into the Thanksgiving long weekend, right? And a big weekend for all of us. And I know we've talked, we love to talk food. We love to talk about what we're doing for food. But I heard an interesting comment on the radio this week as I was driving around. The host was saying, you know what? Turkey for me was always dry. Like back in the 80s, when our moms cooked, we like to think back to the food that we ate. Our moms were the best cooks in the world. But you know what? When I started thinking back to it, yeah, it was dry. Is back in those days, I think they used to throw the turkeys in at like 9 o'clock in the morning. Some people I heard woke up in the middle of the night to throw a turkey in, and they cooked it for like 8 hours, 6 hours. Chef, were you a turkey family growing up, and did you have that same experience? Like, did you find that you do turkey better now than you might have had it as a kid?
You know what?
I think I do.
I don't. My mom was an amazing cook, and I'm not saying that if you produce a dry turkey, you're a bad cook, but my mom's turkey always turned out awesome. Always turned out. It was all like, I love Thanksgiving. I love Christmas. I love all the holidays where you have a turkey. Now, I know Rubio's on here, and Rubio, we've been on our show, we've been on his show. He hates turkey. In fact, turkey might be the only thing he hates more than poutine, because he really has a distaste for poutine. But I love turkey. I especially love turkey with the cranberry sauce. I love the fresh cranberries. But yeah, I have to say that I miss my mom's turkey. Now, we weren't always a turkey family, and that's why in the poem I asked if you were a roast beast family, because we sometimes would have ham. Ham would be one of the meals we have, depending on, again, if we were going to my aunt's house on the Sunday and we are at mom's house, we'd mix it up. Otherwise, turkey 2 days in a row. But um, definitely, I love turkey. Definitely, growing up, I have fond memories of amazing turkey, and I miss a good turkey dinner. I haven't really. I made a turkey dinner a couple of years ago during COVID, and it turned out pretty good. I've made a
Do,
couple at the fire halls, but I'm not I'm not naturally a great cook for turkey. You?
do you know, I've got the one hack that I think, like, I'd never tried. I've heard of it before. I thought it was fancy and took a lot of work.
Yep.
But it's really not. And it's brining your turkey starting about
Yes.
at least 24 hours in advance, but up to 48 hours. So
Tell
we
me
started
about
doing
it.
this about 5 years ago. We started brining in just like salt water, some apple cider vinegar, but you mix in your spices, some onions, things like that, and you just let it soak. But there's one secret ingredient that I discovered. I can't even remember who turned it on to me. You wouldn't think about it, but a little cinnamon in your brine.
Mm.
Now, it all the flavors combine together, and none of the salt and all that, lasts in the turkey, right? You wash it all off. But when you add a little cinnamon to your brine, what you get afterwards, when you take those drippings and you make that gravy, and oranges as well, you get this bright tasting gravy, like not heavy. It's not like an orange flavored gravy. It's gravy, but there's this little sharpness to it that you can't quite identify that comes from the cinnamon and the oranges. So I'm definitely going to be doing that again this year, because for me, Thanksgiving meal is really all about the turkey.
How much work does it take you to do that when you're doing that?
20 minutes, half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour. Like
Yeah.
you gotta boil it, right, with the salt.
Now,
But then you just,
let me ask you this: have you ever deep fried a turkey? Because I mean, some people will bake it in the oven
yeah.
for hours and hours on end. Some people throw it in deep fryer and it's ready in about 45 minutes. Have you ever done that?
I've had it done when we've had Thanksgiving out at the lake. Somebody brings it, the deep fryer, and we've done it like roasted. We've done it deep fried and done it smoked. And honestly, deep fried is a respectable turkey. Like it is actually quite delicious.
Deep fried is an amazing turkey. Just remember, if you are going to use a deep fryer, this is my fire guy talking. If you're going to use a deep fryer, make sure the turkey is completely thawed out and dry when you throw it in, because if you throw a frozen turkey in a deep fryer, it will explode. I don't know if you've seen those videos on social media and that, where people throw a frozen or partially frozen turkey in a deep fryer. It will explode. We did an
Yeah.
experiment like that at the Calgary Fire Department a couple of years ago when we were doing some cooking safety for Fire Prevention Week, and that turkey exploded. Let me ask you this, Sheldon. Any favorite Thanksgiving Day traditions in your home?
Well, here's the one thing. Like, so obviously, Canada has their Thanksgiving now, and the Americans have it, in October or in November, sorry.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more pomp and circumstance I find around the American Thanksgiving. Like ours
Yeah.
was really just about getting together for the food. But the difference is, with Thanksgiving meal traditionally being on the Monday, right?
Yep.
Sometimes we cheat and have it on Sunday.
Yep.
There wasn't a whole lot to it. It was almost like we didn't have a big lead up to it. There'd be times when people would fly into town or drive into town, but no big traditions. What about you guys? You guys do it differently in Montreal, or?
No, like for us growing up, it was simply we'd split time between my mom, like my parents' house, or we'd go visit my aunt. We kind of, we had a close relationship with my mom's sister and our cousins, but now I don't really do too much. I think we talked about this on a previous episode with my kids, and especially in the last few years, we try to split things up in Thanksgiving. But the thing is, when they go to their mom's house, she's making a big turkey meal, and then they come to my house, and I don't want to make another turkey meal. So one year we just started doing the Thanksgiving poutine, and I talked about that.
Yeah,
that's when Rubio
right.
went off the deep end. But I guess if he's going to choose to go to my ex-wife's house for Thanksgiving dinner, or mine, he's going to come to mine because he likes poutine better than turkey. So my kids get a little different, and we did that, and my kids love it. Like, we created some different traditions. One of the traditions I tried to do with my boys is actually, like, you got that tradition of Thanksgiving and football. And during COVID, when you weren't really allowed to do anything or go anywhere, I made a big Thanksgiving dinner. I had all this stuff. And then I just said, boys, let's go play football. Like you see in the movies, like they pull out the football, they do that tackle and nobody gets
Yeah.
hurt. So we went to play tackle football. And my youngest son at the time, that was Kyle, who's 13 now. Probably he was 10, I believe. That might have been the first year of COVID. We broke his thumb. So we had to make I was in the emergency room at the children's hospital on Thanksgiving. So that was a memorable Thanksgiving. And I don't know. It's one of those things that I don't have too many traditions. And now as my family is expanding, I have a girlfriend that has children of her own and her family that lives in Alberta. Definitely looking forward to more different experiences, I guess. I'll probably be in Red Deer on the weekend for the Sunday of Thanksgiving, and it'll be fun. But another holiday, Sheldon, coming up this week. Well, it's not an official holiday, but the second week of actually, you know what? Before we get there, I want to ask you, which Thanksgiving do you think Canadians prefer more? Which Thanksgiving do you think they prefer more? Because, Canadian Thanksgiving is our Thanksgiving and it always comes first. So that's the good thing about it. It's ours. But again, the U.S. Thanksgiving has the football. And the football and the Thanksgiving go hand. We don't necessarily have the football on our Thanksgiving. And I love Thanksgiving because it's an excuse to eat lots of food.
I'll tell you, and I've got some experience, and I guess you do too. Right.
Yeah.
But I spent 5 years in the States and I'll tell you what, Thanksgiving is different. Like for a lot of people, Thanksgiving is as big, maybe bigger than Christmas in terms of people traveling, coming into town. And the fact that the dinner's on a Thursday, so you can actually cheat into town a little bit sooner. Right. You celebrate to kick off the weekend and then everybody's in town doing whatever the family traditions are for the rest of the week. And one year I got the chance, my freshman year at Iowa State, my roommate, Mike Sackless, lived in Warren, Michigan. And so his parents came and got us and we all went up to Warren, Michigan. And there's a couple of teammates that we were dropping off along the way. And I got to spend like 5 days or whatever with them. And it was amazing. I mean, we went to, at that time, the Houston Oilers, Detroit Lions were the big game. So we went to that game. Now for the meal, I kind of had a bit of a misstep when they're bringing out their meals. So you had this creamed cucumber dish and like kind of a soup bowl sized dish, and it happened to be sitting in front of me, and I assumed it was mine. So I just ate the whole thing to be polite. I thought it was like a big bowl of food, but I ate their salad vegetable dish all to myself. And I remember making that mistake. Not a big surprise, I guess, but I love Canadian Thanksgiving, but there's no comparison in terms of the size of it. The American version is just big, right? You've got your Thursday games, you got your college games, everything's going on.
Well, and I remember I was in Dallas for the U.S. Thanksgiving, and actually I had got cut the week before. So I was in Dallas watching my team play on Thanksgiving, and I was kind of very sore and sour just watching them go. But, it was still so awesome to watch and to be there during U.S. Thanksgiving, a lot bigger deal. They had, I remember Creed played the halftime show, and I believe it might have been Carrie Underwood back then, but that maybe not Carrie Underwood. So I like the U.S. Thanksgiving. But I love any excuse to have a turkey, eat. And if I can watch some football, man, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Guys, keep the comments flowing. I see you guys all there. We love it. Love seeing all the comments. Trey, great job putting them up on the screen, but I was alluding to it and I'll get to it now. The unofficial holiday, second week of October and this is Canada, US, it's Fire Prevention Week. It's a big deal for me, right? Like I've been working since Sunday. I normally don't work on the weekend. I work Sunday. I worked all week. I'll be working next Sunday. I'll work nights. It's a big week for the fire service, but especially a big week for my division, community safety. And this year's theme is smoke alarms, make them work for you. And, I think I would be doing a disservice to what I feel is my mission in trying to protect people if we didn't talk about it today. It might not be the most sexy thing to talk about, but it sure is important because I promise you, when I go to people's homes, and I'm not talking about people that, you'd think, oh, they don't know, but everyday people don't understand the basics of fire protection, and working smoke alarms will save your lives. Like, a smoke alarm will reduce the chances of dying in a home fire by half. And people don't know that. And because they don't know that and they don't know how crucial it is, they disconnect the battery when they go off because they made some popcorn, or they don't test them regularly, which should be monthly. They don't change the batteries, or they think they don't need batteries because they're wired into the wall. So yeah, it's a very important time. And I think this message is very important to get out right now. Sheldon,
You
have
know,
you tested your smoke alarms?
no, well, we did a few months ago, actually. I didn't do it for this because if it wasn't for you, I'm not sure I would have been aware of that even.
Yeah.
Right. But we were one of those where it did go off and we did try to jimmy with it. And then we did the reset of it, but then it completely broke.
Yes.
Right. And it wouldn't fire up. Now the thing's 20 years old in our house. Right.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a pain, but we did go out and we did get it replaced. But a good reminder, my trailer, I think I have one that's just like unhooked right now.
Well, you should have, in your trailer, you should have a smoke and a CO alarm.
And yeah. But this is one of those things. Like, I usually like gloss over, safety warnings and wear your helmets and all that kind of stuff, right? I'm safe. But in this spring, we actually just literally 5 houses down.
Yeah.
We had 2.5 houses completely burned down, families completely removed from their home. And I'm not saying they didn't have a smoke alarm. I'm sure they did, and it probably helped them get up and get out of the house faster, because a lot of these fires happen weird hours of the night, right? Whether it's a barbecue that got left on and finally at 3 a.m, or 2 a.m, it trips a fire, right? But those are the little things. Like, we don't think about them a lot, but honestly, yeah, after seeing what those families went through and continue to go through, guys, let's listen to Fire Chief Chevy here and make sure we check our smoke alarms.
So let me give you a couple of facts. First of all, the number one cause of fires is in the kitchen. Okay. The second leading cause of fires is smoking. And probably a lot of those fires that happen at weird hours of the night, a lot of times it's improperly disposed of smoking materials. It could be a candle. A lot of times it's something left on in the kitchen that's burning, right? People forget that unattended cooking is the number one cause. Now, this is the scary part. Newer homes in newer suburbs, those homes are made with lightweight construction materials. The floor plans are so vastly different than homes were 40 years ago. Now they're all open concept, open air. So there's more flow of air. Oxygen obviously feeds fire. People know that from basic science. And because the fuel load is higher, like all this lightweight construction material and the furniture in our homes has a ton of petroleum products, whereas 20, 30 years ago it was all solid wood. These homes burn so much faster and so much hotter. And if there's a fire in your home and you have working smoke alarms, so you hear the sound of smoke alarms, you have less than 2 minutes to get out. That's literally what it is before it becomes a fully involved fire. And that's why it's so crucial to have the smoke alarms, not to save your stuff, but to save your lives. And that's why, like, the most important things to do is make sure you have smoke alarms on every level of your homes, inside your rooms and outside sleeping levels, including basement. Test them once a month. Okay. Change the batteries. Now, if they have replaceable batteries, whether they're hardwired in, which you probably have in your home, or battery operated completely, change the batteries once a year. And then every smoke alarm, whether it's hardwired or not, expires after 10 years. And this is me sounding the alarm for anybody that lives in new communities or newer communities with homes older than 10 years old. They see the smoke alarm, they hear it beeping. If they burn some popcorn or whatever, they think it's working. But these smoke alarms expire. And that's where I feel is the next wave, because all new homes are built with hardwired smoke alarms that are interconnected and talk to each other, but they still expire in 10 years. And so for me, it's very important to get this message out, because again, 3 in 5 fire deaths occur in homes where there was no smoke alarm. So we are this part of my job. That's not the sexy part. I don't jump in the fires. I don't, throw water, and I don't drive in the truck, but I'm trying to educate people to save lives. And I think it's super important. And this week, Fire Prevention Week, is a big deal for me. So hopefully, some people might heed this warning, and it might save one life, or get some people to change their smoke alarms.
There you go. Good advice, Fire Chief Chev. I don't know if I can call you. I can't call you Chief, but I will anyway. So we're going to go to break now, guys. So
Yeah.
just a reminder here, check us out on our socials. We put out a lot of great content. Trey and Chev work on it hard every week. You can find us, of course, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, everywhere. Also where you can find your podcast. But when we come back, have you guys heard about those driverless vehicles coming our way? Well, folks, they are here. And I want to get Chevy's impression on his thoughts if he would get into one of those cars right here next on The Ride.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Experience our new fundraising event, Ignite the Night YYC, this November when we bring the fire hall to the Big Four Roadhouse. Featuring a firefighter challenge, live entertainment, and fabulous food and drink. Tickets and sponsorship opportunities available now. Support the Calgary Firefighters Burn Treatment Society. Ignite the Night YYC this November. Help us help those who have experienced a life-changing burn injury.
Yo, welcome back to The Ride on Tuesday nights. I'm Chevy. He's nasty. You're all there. It's been great. I read some of the comments on the break, Sheldon. Pretty funny stuff. I will say I found the name of the number 46. This is our 46th episode. And the funny, crazy name, check it out. We're number 46 for 4 years for the Calgary Stampeders from 1965 to 1968. Chuck Zickafoos. Chuck Zickafoos might be maybe the best name I've ever heard in sport.
A little bit German there, I'd say.
Yeah, I don't know. And great comment by Bruno. Right as we were talking about smoke alarms, let's put that one up, Trey. Robert Saleh needed a fire detector in his office this morning just before the Jets canned him.
Yeah,
he got unceremoniously exited from the Jets. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Sheldon, you had a question for me. Can you reframe this? Because I want to make sure.
Yeah. So this is a crazy thing. You know, like we've talked before about those rocket jetpacks and all the things AI is taking over the world. One of the big things has been driverless vehicles and the technology that they've been working on. But I found out listening to a show earlier this week that they are actually in existence. There's a company called Waypo, and there might be others, but San Francisco, Arizona, LA, Texas, there are cities already that you can arrive at the airport, call a cab, and get into a driverless cab. And my question to you is, would you do it? Could you do it? Like, put yourself there, right? You're walking up and a car pulls up, the door opens, there's nobody there. Would you get in?
I got to tell you this. When this was science fiction and not reality, way back in the days when I watched Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1990, and he jumped in the cab. I think he was on Mars with Johnny Cab. Do you remember that? That creepy looking,
yeah.
And he's like, just go. And he's like, where do you want to go? Just go. Come on, get out. I thought that was funky back then. I thought, yeah, that'd be cool. That's the future. But now that I don't know if we're in the future yet. I think we're in the transition where people die on the way to the future. And so I've heard the stories of people in Teslas. I think there was someone doing the driverless function in a Tesla. They were sleeping and someone caught them. They got pulled over. But a cab, there's a lot of like maneuvering around the city, and gosh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm there yet. I don't know if I have the ability. You know what I need? If it's a driverless cab, I need a brake pedal. I need to at least be able
Yes.
to like when I learned how to drive the car. When I learned how to drive a car, my first day on the highway, I was driving. There was a snowstorm. I'll never forget this. And there was like a big rig on the right. There was a big rig on the left, and it was snowing. And the lady next to me, she was like chain smoking, and she had a brake pedal, right? And
Your instructor was chain smoking?
yeah. She was chain smoking, and she had a brake pedal like right there. And all I remember is like as I'm driving, and I'm like panicking. My first day on the highway, snow barely visible, big rig. All of a sudden, a pigeon just hits the windshield and was like stuck there, like looking at me. And I could see her just like, and I could see she was going to go for the brakes, right? And then I just instead of going for the brakes, she switched the cigarette. She grabbed the wiper. She took and flipped the bird off, and I kept going. But that brake was always on the ready. And I think if we're talking about these driverless cabs, I might be okay to give up some form of control, but I need something that like I can't just have an oh shit handle. I need like a handle, like I got to be able to pull the stop.
So here's what's in the back of my mind, Chev. Like, I can see the data and okay, maybe you can show me that they're safer, but I'm a good driver. Like, I don't get in accidents. I've been in maybe in one my entire life, right? My thing is I'm driving along. It's not just what my sensors are seeing in front of me, where cars coming from. I notice everything. That truck tire has a wobble. That load on the back of the vehicle doesn't look well secured. What if something is wobbling and your perception sees it, but will these cars sense danger the way that we sense danger? Even when I go to change lanes, I'm usually planning it, 2 lanes over in 30 seconds in advance, trying to see what other people are doing to get a feel for the road. I don't trust the intuition of AI. Now, you can show me stats that it might actually be safer, but I'm with you, Chev. The way you said it was perfect. We are at the point where we are transitioning. And you know what that means? A whole lot of people are going to die. And we're going to learn from their mistakes. 10 years from now, this might be great. But right now.
Yeah. But let me tell you this. I've been in some cabs with some people I wish weren't driving. I wish it was a driverless with a cab. But you know what? With some of those drivers, you still feel like you're obligated to tip. Driverless car. We asked in the poll, like, do you tip? Is it like going, sometimes you go to a Subway and there's like a tip. It's like, no, you made a sandwich, man. You didn't serve me. You made a sandwich. That's your job. Like, it's not like certain industry, all these places that ask for tip when they shouldn't. But a driverless cab, is it going to cost more? Is it going to cost less? I mean, you don't have to employ the person. And then I guess my next question would be this: will you have driverless Ubers? And then going further down the road, could you be asleep owning an EV with a driverless function and sending the car to work for you?
I'd be sending us 6 of them. That's where it's going to end up going, right? It's going to be fleets, but as Nana Mona says, no, nasty, do not get in. And you know what? I would do it just to do it on a short little trip, but I would not use it for my main source of transportation. I'm going to do it just to experience it and to feel that fear, because I got to know what it feels like to get in there out of control. But
but I'm going to ask you something else, related but not related. Okay, so you may or may not get in the driverless cab. You may or may not believe in the technology. But I'm going to ask you this: I'm going to give you 3 cars. You're going to tell me they're all driverless. You're going to tell me if you're getting in. Are you going to get in Kit from Knight Rider?
All
no
right.
driver. Kit. Are you going to jump in the Batmobile from 1989's Batman?
Oh,
or are you in for a little more of a joyride? Would you be a Herbie the Love Bug? Everyone loved Herbie, and he was so damn reliable.
I'm glad you I didn't know you're a Herbie the Love Bug guy. I used to love those shows growing up.
I love Herbie, man.
But no, that's not my style, and I wouldn't even fit. Batmobile is a tempting option, right?
Yep.
But the 89 version you talk about, no, not so much. Too hard to park, takes up too much room. Getting in and out of that thing would be a pain. But Kit, I love that reference. Knight Rider, because I feel this. What I say about the perception and the observation of what's going on, Kit saw everything. He kept Michael Hasselhoff, out of so many jams, got him out of so many jams. He was a partner in crime. That car, that would be my car. I would get a kit. I might move into the body of a Ford Raptor or something like that, right? With the lights going across. I'd probably get a truck version of it, but yeah, definitely kit.
You might be onto something. The revival of Knight Rider. I mean, I know Bruno. Bruno's jumping in the Batmobile, and I gotta say, I think I'm jumping in the Batmobile too.
Yeah, I can see it.
But Kit had personality, right? Kit, if you're gonna have a driverless cab, it better not be a quiet ride. Like, it better talk to you, it better like ask you how your day was. But you know what would be cool to wrap this up? Sheldon, let's take a trip to San Francisco, okay, or Phoenix, wherever they have these cabs, and let's do the ride in the driverless ride.
Oh, you got it. Hey, I know someone at WestJet. I'm not going to take a riderless drive all the way down there, but yes, let's do it. It's on.
Let's do that.
So, Chev, let's transition right now. It would be Chevy Nasty with a little bit of sports in here.
Yeah.
So we're trying a new segment so that we don't get lost. Trey wants to keep us on time, and this is, what are we calling it, Trey?
Wait, we're not there yet.
Oh, we're not there yet.
We got to do our picks, Sheldon. We got to do our
picks. Oh,
look
God. Yeah.
Well, the picks. Listen, the picks is not about the games. The picks is about me versus Sheldon. We started the picks last year in the playoffs because we said, well, who's going to win? And Sheldon is still pissed off that I picked the Alouettes to go to the Grey Cup, that we decided this year we're gonna do the picks. Now we're neck and neck here. You see the record here. I've been clawing every week, getting to a tie, and then I lose. I can't overtake you, but I promise you there's 3 weeks left. And I think, last week, Sheldon, I thought I had a legitimate opportunity to score some points there.
You picked Hamilton, did.
Well, I thought Winnipeg was in for a letdown. They had to have a letdown week, and I thought Hamilton was still on the rise. But Bo Levi, you let me down last weekend. I knew the Stamps. I knew that coming out of the bye, and we said something was going to happen if they lost this game. And something did happen today. We'll talk about it. And the rise, I thought Edmonton was on a roll. I thought, you know what, they had something to play for. And all my teams disappointed last week, and all your teams won. I mean, if we were a betting show, like Bet whatever they have, MGM, DraftKings, you'd be the guy to go to. So if you're the guy to go to, Sheldon, start us with the picks next week. Toronto, Winnipeg.
Toronto, Winnipeg. Dude, I'm going to use the same formula I used last week, and the best teams this time of year are going to be the best teams. Toronto's hungry. Bombers have been there before. They're experienced. Their coaching staff knows what to do. Their veteran players know what to do. Bombers going to Toronto and take this one.
Well, I think Toronto's actually going to Winnipeg, but
is it really? Well, that's even more to my point. What do you?
Yeah, I'm with you. Winnipeg. I mean, listen, they took care of the Tiger Cats, and they're peaking. They're looking good, and they're the toast of the West. So I'm picking them. This is the nothing game. The Edmonton, Calgary, both teams, we'll talk about them in a second, but Edmonton beat them 2 times in a row in the Labor Day game, Labor Day rematch. Calgary, not looking good. Who you picking in this one?
This is one I'm probably wrong in, but I'm going to say getting Trey Ford in there, giving him a week to work with it. We don't know who's going to be starting at quarterback for Calgary this week. So my gut tells me that the Elks, although they're out of the playoffs, they're not dejected. They're actually got some momentum on their side. They're going to prove that they can play and be a team to watch for next year. So I'm going with the Elks.
Yeah, you know what? I'm Calgary made a change at quarterback. We're going to talk about that in a second. But they also got Matthew Schultz back, who they signed to be the insurance policy in case Jake Mayer got hurt or happened with this season. He got injured in practice, missed most of the season. He's going to get the start this week. He's playing for his job as well. I'm taking Calgary in this one. BC, Saskatchewan.
You go.
BC, Saskatchewan. BC's going into Saskatchewan. I think Nathan Rourke's starting to find his groove. He has to heading into the playoffs. I'm going to put it on him that he's going to do his thing. I'm going to take BC, even though they're playing in Saskatchewan. I think, they got to turn it around. They got to string 2 in a row.
Yeah, and this is another one that's a bit tough, but I'm going to go back to who's playing best right now. And the Riders have won, I think it is now 3 in a row. It might just be 2 in a row. I think they've won 3 in a row. And they're putting things together. Nathan Rourke hasn't showed me that he's the Nathan Rourke of old yet. He will get there, but he might need a training camp.
So you take Sask?
Oh, I'm taking Saskatchewan. Yeah. And the last one, Red Blacks and Alouettes.
I'm taking Montreal.
Yeah.
Montreal. That's it. That's it. So, okay, let's move on from that. We did our picks. Trey's going to record them. I'm hoping to overtake you next week, but I don't know. It's becoming tougher and tougher to call. But you know what's not tough to call? We still want to talk sports, but we want to evolve the show. But before we let go of the sports, we want to hit some of the main topics going on today. So we've got a segment called the Chevy and Nasty Blitz. We're going to pick 4 topics. We're going to talk about them. Sheldon, do you want to start or do I want to start?
I'll start this one off.
Okay.
And this is one that we've already been seeing in the comments. Just this morning, the Jets fired their head coach, Robert Saleh. I can say.
Yeah.
Saleh. Losing this past weekend to the Vikings in Europe, who are now 5-0. The disappointing 2-3 the Jets were. Is the coach the reason the Jets stink? Is it Aaron Rodgers coming off his Achilles tear and he's just not the same guy? Or is it the fact that it was just an awkward hug and everything just fell apart from there?
I think it's the awkward hug. I mean, it was on national TV and everyone saw it, and there was trouble in paradise. But no, really, you know what? I'm going to pin this on Aaron Rodgers. I think a lot of expectations on a guy coming off an Achilles tear. The Jets have just mismanaged talent for years and years. And, the icing on the cake is the former Jets quarterback, Sam Darnold, is the one that gets the current coach fired. So, a lot going on there. But I think Aaron Rodgers seems to be a coach killer. Mike McCarthy, he tried LaFleur back in Green Bay. Like, he just doesn't get along with his coaches, and he's the highest paid guy in the team. Yeah. Well, what do you think?
And he doesn't listen to his coaches. He had that a certain amount. He's got that certain confidence to him, right? Where it doesn't matter what's called. He's audibling on the play. It's his game plan that they're going to execute. He's got to be the most frustrating quarterback in the world when he's not on his game to be coaching. Pretty easy to be a good coach when he's on, but he just hasn't shown it. So, yeah, I mean, again, the Jets front office dysfunctional. You could hardly blame the coach for this, other than the awkward hug. But yeah, I think that Rodgers had a lot to do with this.
Yeah, but that was an awkward hug. Calgary Stampeders will miss the playoffs for the first time in 20 years. Instead of firing someone, as we thought, they wound up hiring PJ Walker, quarterback, who's been a bit of a journeyman in the XFL and the NFL. We talked about him in one of our very first podcasts last year, but he's been successful. He did great in Carolina in relief for Teddy Bridgewater. He was part of the resurgence of the Browns last year. Is he going to take the Stampeders to the promised land? Are there deeper problems that the Stampeders have yet to address? Or is this the end of Jake's run in Calgary, Sheldon?
Well, those are three really different questions, but I've been critical for the last couple of years because I just don't see it in Jake Mayer. I think he needs some development, and it's not happening in Calgary. Because of that, I thought that Dave was in real danger of getting forced out. I think the one thing that Dave could have done is making an aggressive move to say, we're going to make this club better. And bringing in PJ Walker, I think, was a great call because it's addressing at the most crucial time of the season. Should have been done 3 months ago, in my opinion. But to go out there and find a real potential solution. Is Walker the guy? I don't know. We liked him we liked him coming out of the XFL. I think it was in Carolina, or he had a couple. He was 4-3 as a start. Like, he did fine. Yeah. He's a veteran guy. Kind of going the same path as McLeod Bethel Thompson in success in another non-NFL league as well. Yeah, I like it. I think it's a good move, and I think it's going to catch you as not a season ticket holder, but as a fan, I like the move. I'm not saying it's the move to put him over the top, but it is at least addressing the fact that you've got a problem.
Yeah. You know what? I'm with you. I like PJ Walker. I think he's got that right pedigree for the CFL. He put in the work in the minor league, so to speak. He did the XFL journey, but he's proven himself at the NFL level. So I don't think he comes here, and I don't know him, but with that entitlement where the CFL is going to be easy, I think he knows that, he's 39 years old or 37 years old. He's been a pro for 7 years and hasn't really found a spot, but he has had success. I think he takes this opportunity and runs with it. And I think he, with the combination of him and Dave, who's a great quarterback coach. Yeah, maybe they got it wrong with Jake. But historically, Dave has been really good with quarterbacks. So I think this is a good move, but there's still a few other things to address. And it's tough, but they're going in the right direction. 29, I said 39, 29, but 29 is still, still a few years in. Sorry about that.
So now, speaking of the Stamps,
Yeah.
And we've been talking the Elks. We said it's been 20 years since the Stamps have been out of the playoffs, but it's actually been like 1945. 80 years was the last time there was no Alberta team in the CFL playoffs. 80 years, right? Through all those great runs. Now, we've both been associated with both teams. I never played for the Elks, but I was drafted by him. Whose fault is this? Is this the fault of the Calgary's downfall? Is this Edmonton's fault? Or is just health frozen over from climate change and it's just a one-off? Or is football in Alberta in trouble? Where do you put the blame on this one?
You know what? I'm going to put the blame on the Elks on this one. You asked, is it the Stamps or the Elks? I put it on the Elks. They had an opportunity to challenge. I mean, the Stamps, we knew they were playing bad. We knew the Stamps weren't going to make it. So it was all the pressure was on the Elks to keep that run that they were going on when McLeod Bethel Thompson took over after Trey Ford. They were a 1-2 punch and they were getting it done and then they choked. And so I put the blame squarely on the Elks and the name change. That's what it's got to be.
I put it a little bit more on the Stamps because they've seen this problem coming. I think they could have made the changes, a season ago, a couple of seasons ago, to start revamping that roster or the toolbox, even in the coaching staff, right? But at the end of the day, it happened 1945 to 2024. That's a long run. Maybe we should celebrate it, but it is odd not to see either of these teams in the playoffs.
Well, and Jamin makes a good point. It's the first time in forever this happens, and it's a really tough feat to accomplish when there are only 4 teams in the West. So,
yeah.
So finally, hockey reporter Frank Cervelli is a connection to Calgary. He's always on local Calgary radio, and this story is a local. It's kind of connected locally. He wrote a really insensitive article talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets. Chances in the draft lottery increasing thanks to Johnny Gaudreau. Basically, he's saying thanks to Johnny's death, very insensitive. So he's since apologized. But I'm going to ask you, do you think this was an honest mistake, or is this a slimy headline grab, or was he hacked? He could be hacked, right? What do you think?
Everybody's getting hacked these days. This one just blows me away. Yep. Like, it feels like it almost has to be a slimy grab, but is he the kind of guy to do that? I don't know. I don't know him well enough to say that, but I do know this. When you're on live, there's a chance that you can say something stupid that just comes to your mouth, right? Yeah, and it comes out. When it's in print, I get there's deadline pressures, but you have editors. There should be checks and balances and levels. I almost feel like he slipped this one in. He rode with it. He made his call, and it feels slimy. I don't know the guy, but it doesn't feel good. An apology is the least you can do afterwards. But there's some guys that wouldn't come back from a comment like that. Like, is he not the most hated guy in at least 2 hockey markets right now? Because that was terrible.
Yeah, that was a bad take. Bad take. Just the way he wrote it, it's like, gosh, I think it's a little slimy. I don't think. I don't know. Does he come face to face with the Blue Jackets? I don't know if he's a guy that sits in a studio, if he actually goes and does scrums in locker rooms when they come to town, but I'm sure they'll look at him a little bit differently. And you know what? I got to assume if he's in Calgary, because again, I don't know if he's based out of Calgary. He does a lot of Calgary radio, but there's a lot of guys in that Calgary locker room that were connected to Johnny, and they'd probably have a word or two to say.
That's what I was going to ask you. As a player, would you talk to this guy afterwards? Because I wouldn't.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't talk to him.
I wouldn't talk to him after that because I just that was so offside, right?
Yeah, so it was slimy. It was slimy, and obviously, so many people still hurting from the loss of Johnny and Johnny Gaudreau and his brother. It's just bad. But you know what? I want to take this and I want to spin it somewhere. I was watching.
Do we have time to do that right now, or do you want to go to break and bring this up afterwards? Because this is a good one. I think it deserves the time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know what, guys? Thanks for joining us. We got a really good segment planned for the next one. Take it with us. Remember, like and subscribe to our show. Chevy and S, we're changing things up. We a little bit here, a little bit there, add a little spice. We're glad you're along for the ride. We're going to take a little break, have a little pee, have some water. And when we come back, we'll talk about, we'll kind of springboard off this topic into the next one.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Experience our new fundraising event, Ignite the Night YYC, this November when we bring the fire hall to the Big 4 Roadhouse. Featuring a firefighter challenge, live entertainment, and fabulous food and drink. Tickets and sponsorship opportunities available now. Support the Calgary Firefighters Burn Treatment Society. Ignite the Night YYC this November. Help us help those who have experienced a life-changing burn injury.
Okay, so Sheldon, great call on bringing us into this segment because we wanted to give it at least a proper due.
It's worth mentioning, right? It's
It
it happened.
So first of all, thanks guys for sticking with us. We know it's late on a Tuesday night, but you always give us your time, and we appreciate you. And we appreciate we have really loyal followers, listeners, and you're always there for us. You always give us great ideas, and I love reading the comments. I love going back after. But that last topic, dealt with reporters' insensitive comments to Johnny Gaudreau. And since that time, we talked about drinking and driving. We talked about just how impactful that moment is and how people take notice. Now, the other day, I texted you guys because I was watching on Instagram Live, The Rock. The Rock's Instagram Live comes up, and I hadn't watched wrestling in a while. Actually, we talked about this, how, we talked about the Vince McMahon documentary, right? And how, we haven't watched wrestling in a long time, but I'm kind of in and out. And last year, or at the beginning of April, The Rock was in a real big feud with Cody Rhodes, and his promos were captivating. They were the old Rock. I loved it. Then he kind of disappeared to do some filming, and I see that he's going live. So I'm like, I just click on live because he rarely goes live, and he's cutting a WWE promo after an event. And I thought, oh, this is cool. So The Rock is doing this promo, and I actually had a problem with it. Now, should we just cue the promo. Trey, throw it up. I want you guys to watch this, and then we'll chat a little bit.
Crazy tonight before The Rock came out. The final boss music hits. If you smell, bang, roof blew off that place. The world will never be the same again. Because right now, The Rock is feeling good. Right now, everybody at home who just witnessed the final boss come out is feeling good. Right now, the world is feeling good. Mana, the final boss. And here we go. This is how good. The final, god damn, that's good shit. The final boss is feeling. Music, the final boss.
The Calgary Stampeders will miss the playoffs for the first time in 20 years instead of. Calgary Stampeders will miss the playoffs for the first time in 20 years. Instead of firing it, instead of firing someone, they hired quarterback PJ Walker, who's been a bit of a journeyman in the XFL, but he's been successful. Is he going to take the Stamps to the promised land to the next level? Are there deeper problems that still have to be addressed? Is it the end? Yeah, you can end that.
Yeah, that was weird. Were you practicing?
Yeah, because when we're pulling the video, I was just going through some of the show notes, and I guess it made it on somehow onto that video. But yeah, there, as you can clearly see, The Rock's been the badass of the Attitude Era, right?
Yeah.
But he's also. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. So I watched this, right? And I love. You guys know I have the man crush on The Rock. So I watch him cut the promo, and he takes a big swig of tequila, his Terramana tequila. I got no problems with that. But then he jumps in the truck, and again, the question I want to know is, like, I had an issue with it. Now, is it me being, I don't even know if you apply this word woke. Is it me being old? But here I am he had the shot. He jumps in the truck like he's Macho Rock. He's the bad guy, the final boss. But I had a problem with it. And I had a problem with it because it's like, yes, I know he's a character. But we've talked the last 2 weeks when we talk about Vince McMahon about blurring the lines between reality and the character. And there are so many people that look up to him as a role model, not because he's a good guy, because he's in everything, right? Everyone, I love The Rock. Even that doesn't make me not love The Rock, but I sure question the judgment of putting that out there. And am I wrong? Like, what do you think?
No, first off, I don't think you're wrong at all. And I'm the same. I'm not like I don't have the same man crush on The Rock that you do, but I love The Rock, right? I love his bit. I love his shtick, and some of that's completely on brand, and that's what I expect of him. But in this time and era, Johnny Gaudreau just died from a drunk driver. Vince McMahon and the WWE under massive scrutiny for making the wrong calls that boost their ratings, calls that made them bigger than life, but ethically the wrong call. And I'm not woke. I don't need my people that I follow to be my moral compass. I don't need a president, a prime minister, an actor, a singer. I just like the bit. But I do know this, that kids and people of all ages can be influenced by some of these bits and some of these actors. And I think that was a bad call. I drank more Budweiser than I ever did in my life when Stone Cold Steve Austin was wrestling, right? I loved it. You see people start talking like their favorite people. And you know, right there, it's just he makes it look like a badass thing to do, have a shot, jump in that truck, and rip out of there. He could have jumped in a limo full of chicks, right? With a driver, right?
And again, you know, when I put this out there, Trey was like, "That's badass." I'm like, "Yeah, that's the problem with it. It looks so badass. It looks cool." Now, you know, you're a 20-year-old kid. You're not The Rock, probably drinking orange juice, but you think, "Oh, you have a shot. You go take a drive, right?" And it's like, where does it end?
What you do if you're a badass, right?
I never will forget, and I said this in our text chat group. The last line from No Country for Old Men, when Josh Brolin is almost home free, he gets to the hotel. And if you haven't seen this movie, it's a fantastic movie by the Coen brothers. He gets to the hotel. There's a sexy gal in the pool. She says, "You want a beer?" He says, "No, I'm good." She says, "Oh, what are you afraid of?" And he's kind of looking at her. He goes, "You know what one beer leads to?" And she says, "What?" He says, "More beer." And the screen goes black, and that's the last scene of the movie because he wound up dead, right? And I just think that again, I might be reading too much into it, but for what he gives, the message, and then again, we just watched the Vince McMahon documentary on Netflix, and one of the biggest reasons they had to come out of the Attitude Era wasn't because it was bad for the kids. It was because it was bad for business. They were a publicly traded company, and they couldn't attract the sponsors that they wanted. They couldn't attract the Wheaties. They couldn't attract the Nabisco and the stuff that's marketed to kids because the Attitude Era with all the sexism, all the raunchy behavior, the badassery, it killed money. And I see something like that, especially when this documentary had just come out and there's so much heat on WWE from the documentary. I'm sure there is. And then you see The Rock, the biggest star in the world, take a shot of tequila and jump in the truck. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe not too many people saw it. But at the same time, I just felt bad about it. I just felt bad.
It's a bad look. It's a bad look. It's a bad look, especially outside of wrestling. His acting career, guy had a squeaky clean image, right? He was the good guy. He made all the right decisions. He was the hero of all the movies that he shot. But
and he still is. He still is. It's a bad look. It's in character for that character, but that was you're right.
It's a bad look.
He could have gone in a limo. He could have had, he could have gone in a driverless taxi cab and drank all the Terramana he wanted. Hey, way to bring that back. But it jumped in his truck. It could have been, you know what? It could have been your kit. Could have been his big F-150, but driverless.
That totally. There's a lot of ways they could have spun that. But you know what's funny is he has been your man crush and your hero. Yeah. I had an influence, probably the biggest influence on my life, because before I ever got into football, I was a music guy. I love bands. I played in bands. I played multiple instruments. I was in musicals in junior high and high school.
Wow.
From a big guy. A lot of them were like church ones, not high school stuff. But I love to get out there and perform.
Okay.
But not perform. I just love to play. One of my heroes, and we talk about how Nirvana changed your life when you first heard "Smells Like Teen Spirit" come on the air. For me, it was the Tragically Hip.
Oh
Right,
yeah,
Gord Downey. And after the first
Mhm.
time I saw Gord Downey, the front man for the Hip, live, it changed my life. I was like, it wasn't a man crush, but I became a super nerd. Not only did I know every lyric to every song, I would like pirate back when there was LimeWire and stuff like that. I would pirate and I would learn all the rants that he did, like the Killer Whale Tank or the things he do behind the scenes with Nautical Disaster. And it was brilliant. I just loved every bit about him. And when he died, I was really affected by it. Like he was a guy that was a big part of my life. And listening to his poetry and his lyrics changed the way I thought about a lot of things, or helped guide my thoughts. And then all of a sudden, boom, brain cancer.
Yeah.
And he goes on that one last epic tour.
Yep.
And for about a year after that, I mourned and I watched every live concert that I could. And then I kind of moved on. But 3 weeks ago, Amazon Prime comes out with this a docuseries, No Dress Rehearsal, on Prime. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to watch this, Chef. I wasn't sure I was ready to invest that much time and energy and emotion into it. But a few nights ago, I turned it on. And you know what, Chef? It was good.
Really?
It was really good. Like, sometimes you're almost worried. Maybe half the reason I didn't want to watch it is, okay, where's it going to take me? Is it just going to be some rah band thing? No, and I haven't watched the whole thing, but when we talk about what we like to watch, I know you're a big wrestling guy. I want to watch this series. I actually purposely stopped it because I'm going to wait till I have about a couple of days where I can just binge this thing. But it goes right back into the days with video, photos, and interviews from when they're in high school and at college in Kingston. Dude, it was absolutely amazing to see a docuseries done about a Canadian band that had such an impact on, I'm sure, so many of it. Am I the only Hip fan out here, guys? Like,
no,
I don't see anybody jumping in here, but
Sheldon, the Hip was the anthem of my university career. Like that's when they were at their peak, right? You talk about REM, the Hip, Bare Naked Ladies, Our Lady Peace. The Canadian music rock scene was huge in the 90s and the 2000s. My fear is the Hip was so Canadian that our kids and their kids might not know just how great they were. Like they didn't do the US tour. They were strictly a Canadian and Canadiana band, but they were great. And you're right. Like I wasn't one of the people that followed them after my university. Like my musical tastes evolved, but I always loved the Hip. Like you mentioned my favorite song, Nautical Disaster. And then the next one, right, is New Orleans is Sinking. But they were the anthem of my university career. And they were Canada, right? The Kingston, the good old boys from Kingston, Ontario. And it is hard to imagine this landscape without them performing. Like,
I'm going to tell one. We're short on time, but I'm going to close with one story. I was at Iowa State, and a guy named Grant Everett from Winnipeg. We were the two Canadians on the team. And Tragically Hip was opening up for the Unleaded Tour in 1996, 1995. We had our tickets. It was during spring break when we had our camps, so we had curfew. But we're like, you know what? We're going to risk curfew. It's spring ball. What are they going to do? And we got our tickets, and we showed up to Hilton Coliseum, Hilton Magic, the famous basketball stadium in Ames, with our Canadian flags ready for the show. And when we got there, standing in line to get in, the announcement was made that one of them, their wife just had a baby, so there'd be no show tonight. We still had tickets for the Unleaded Tour. We took our flags and we went back to our dorms. We were so disappointed that we didn't get to see the Hip in Ames, Iowa, that we didn't even go see, Led Zeppelin, in their comeback show, right? So anyway, that's my story. I'm gonna give the last word to you. Where do you want to take it from here?
Well, listen, it's just about midnight. We're knocking on that door. First of all, thank you guys for being part of our show. Like and subscribe to all our socials. We got two choices now. We end it now, or we hit a few minutes of overtime with the last couple of topics we have and then set it off into sunset. What do you want to do? Do you have overtime in you? I'm starting to realize.
I think some of these
I was going to say,
I'm starting to realize
that as we evolve, we're probably an hour and a half show. However we evolve, we're probably an hour and a half a show.
Well, not at 11 o'clock at night, but
no, not at 11 o'clock at night.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. but yeah. So what do you want to do? Because time is ticking. We could hit that 11 o'clock, take a quick break, come back, hit it for about 10, 15 minutes, and then say goodnight. What do you guys want? Rob,
You know what, Chev?
Rob is petitioning hard. Anyone else?
You know what? Well, I think they're who for all I know, they're the last two standing with us till midnight here on this beautiful October night in Calgary, Alberta, or wherever you folks might be. Yeah, sure, Chev. I got 15 minutes for you for sure.
Okay,
Let's do it.
Let's take a break. We'll come back with some overtime.
Elon for
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Experience our new fundraising event, Ignite the Night YYC, this November when we bring the fire hall to the Big 4 Roadhouse. Featuring a firefighter challenge, live entertainment, and fabulous food and drink. Tickets and sponsorship opportunities available now. Support the Calgary Firefighters Burn Treatment Society. Ignite the Night YYC this November. Help us help those who have experienced a life-changing burn injury.
Welcome.
there you go.
Welcome.
Jamie coming.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Jamie coming to us from Medicine Hat tonight. He's excited. I guess he's staying at a hotel somewhere in beautiful Medicine Hat, Alberta. So
I love it.
what else do you have to do on a Tuesday night or now Wednesday morning? But
Yeah.
catch a little bit of the ride.
Well, welcome to the Chuck Zickafoos episode of the Chevy and Nasty Show. And if you don't know what that means, that's number 46 on the all-time Stampeders roster. I just love his name, Zickafoos. We're doing overtime because we're doing it for you. You guys asked for it. We're doing it. We had some topics we weren't going to get to, but you know what? We're going to get to them. Sheldon, you talked about watching Tragically Hip on Amazon Fire. And, the interesting thing is this is our show. Like, we aren't super polished, and you guys know that, and we know that. We're not pretending to be super polished. And you know what? We could talk about a series we watched, even though we haven't finished the whole thing. What are you 2 episodes into the
and then I had to force myself to stop because I don't like watching it just on the weekends. I want to power through it and experience it, right?
But it's cool that you give us a little preamble because now I want to watch it because you got me all excited about the songs, the albums that were literally the anthem of my university career. And the other night on Sunday, I was going to watch it. I was down in my gym. It was midnight. I went down my basement. I couldn't sleep. I was going to watch it. And something told me, you know what? Sheldon talked about it. He's going to talk about it on the show. I want to talk about something different. And I was going to watch my typical cartoon that I watch, Invincible on Prime. But then I saw the Face Off, the NHL series that everyone is talking about on Prime. And part of it is because of this epic Connor McDavid meltdown in that documentary. And it's basically a behind the scenes 6-part series. If you haven't seen it, it takes place right at the end of last season into the playoffs and kind of highlights different playoff stories at the end of the season. And I started watching it, Sheldon. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So I watched 2 episodes and I'm into a third. I watched the episode on Willie Nylander of the Toronto Maple Leafs and David Pastrnak from the Boston Bruins, and how these guys were friends who played together when they were in junior. Actually, I think it was pro in Sweden, became good friends, and they have a really tight bond. Pastrnak lost his dad when they were teammates. They were close, and now they're NHLers. And whenever they're in the city, they kind of meet each other. I thought it's really good. And it goes into the series, how Nylander missed the first 2 games of the series and nobody knew what was wrong with him. No one knows where he was. He comes back. He helps the Leafs bring it all the way to game 7 overtime. I mean, it was epic. And the theater of it was amazing. It was very much like the quarterback docu-series that you had on Netflix last year. We talked about with Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and the guy that what's his name?
So can I ask you a question about that? Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I've always been one of those guys. Like I said, I was kind of music and superheroes first as a kid. I developed a love for football the first time I stepped on a field, and I love football ever since. But I like playing sports. For me, I never watched the quarterback series. I didn't watch the receiver series. I didn't watch, and I haven't watched this. What is it about this that grabs you the most? Because I already know. I know in my mind it's going to be one thing, but it's probably like way better, right? Way better. What grabs you about a series like this? Does it put you in the locker room? Like what to do?
I just like the behind the scenes stories. I like seeing what, that you're seeing more than just the ice. And typically, especially with NHL players, they're so locked up, and why this is getting a lot of hype. They're not like the football players that are flashy or the basketball players, right? They're typically guarded kids. They play the NHL. They kind of, for hockey fans, they're a big deal. But on the sports scene in North America, the toil in relative obscurity, unless they're in a big market like Toronto or Montreal or Vancouver or Edmonton. But, if you're playing for the Salt Lake City hockey team, nobody knows who you are. You have Vegas Golden Knights. Yeah, but, Vegas is a tourist town, so to see this, to see them being real, as Rob Evans mentions, it's really neat. It's really neat to get and then when the action on the ice creates a level of drama that supports a storyline, like the Willie Nylander story was so good because, it was him, it was Pastrnak. They had to film this before it happened. They filmed them they decided to film this last year, and it was like game 68 where Boston goes to Toronto and they go have a meal together and they're talking about how good friends they are, blah, 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 blah. Fast forward, now they're in the playoffs in the series where the Leafs fall, I think 0-2 to the Bruins, and Nylander was missing for the first 2 games because he had some concussion symptoms, right? And then the drama of it building up to this game 7 overtime, I love that stuff. Because if they didn't film that stuff, the only historical record you'd have of that great thing is the action on the ice. And now you have this story to support. So I love that. I love the first book that I ever read on my own. That was like me just picking up a book and reading. And I didn't even like football at this time, was Charles Haley's autobiography. The guy who actually at the time had the most Super Bowl rings. I think he had 3 with Dallas and 2 with the 49ers. And it was all about his rise and fall and addiction and craziness of being this superstar athlete. I never knew anything about football when I read this, but I was so captivated by how real this was. Because at that time I thought, every athlete is just a superhero guy. You know how you said you don't need them to be your moral compass. When you're a kid growing up, looking up to all these athletes, you see that. And then all of a sudden you see these stories and it's so real. And one of the things that makes this so real, and I haven't gotten to that episode, is the Connor McDavid episode, which I believe is the 6th episode. I haven't been there. But that's the one that everyone's talking about, where he's losing his shit in the locker room after, I don't know if it's after the game 7, but basically people are like, oh my God, I can't believe this. He's swearing, he's losing. And it's like, well, don't be surprised, because every other episode they had Jack Eichel from the Golden Knights. Every second word was an F-bomb. Every coach, Paul Maurice of the Florida Panthers on that episode, every second word's an F-bomb. Basically, everyone's swearing, but all of a sudden in Canada, we're like, oh, wait a second, Connor McDavid's losing his stuff. But again, it's that thing, everyone puts him up here as this certain type of person because he's so guarded. Next thing you know, you see behind the curtain, and it kind of really opens the eyes. I like that. I don't know how much parents of kids would like that, because they probably look to him like this hero that, walks on water. But I appreciate that type of stuff. And so watching these documentaries, and I think even when we started the show, Sheldon, I said I wanted to do a segment where I review
documentaries,
just sports documentaries, because they're so compelling. Like the Vince McMahon documentary, not only is it compelling hearing his story, but you got Bret Hart talking about being screwed in Montreal, and you got like every documentary. I watched the documentary on the if you've ever seen Icarus, the steroid scandal.
I saw it. Yeah, I watched that for sure.
That started out as the guy just trying to break Lance or match Lance Armstrong's performance, and then it develops into this crazy.
I shouldn't have said that I never watched these, because I did watch Icarus and I did watch McMahon, right? And now what McMahon left me with is with all the material that they could have done to expose what was going on. I would love to have Bret Hart sitting down talking for half an hour, 4 hours about his take on that documentary, because I thought that was a softball documentary. Right? Like, I don't feel like we got into the nitty-gritty. I learned things like Hulk Hogan was a bit of a stooge for Vince McMahon, that, or he just knew where his bread was buttered, but I think the whole thing had the footprint or the thumbprint of McMahon all over it, where they were limited in what they could say about it. I would love to see a true, well done Hart story documentary and get the Hart family's reaction to that documentary.
Well, and I talked about this last week, and I'll remind you, you got to go to watch the Dark Side of the Ring series that's produced by Vice, and I believe they're on YouTube. And I saw a couple of them. The Montreal Screwjob was a good one. The death of Dino Bravo, where he was a great wrestler in WWE, becomes a hitman in Montreal, gets killed by the mob. There's a lot of good ones there. But yeah, no, I agree with you. That documentary was a little soft, but maybe we'll get Bret Hart on the show one day. Like I know Bret pretty well, that I'm sure if we did our show at a reasonable hour, Bret might come on, but 11 o'clock at midnight, I don't know if Bret's doing it. But I wanted to ask you something else.
Yeah.
Transitioning away from documentaries this weekend. I planned to go watch I had planned in the weekend past to go watch a movie with my kids. And you know me, you mentioned it. I love the comic book stuff. Like I love all the super, like I go watch it. I buy my ticket usually on release night if I can. I watched the first Joker, and I don't know if any of you have seen that with Joaquin Phoenix. He was phenomenal in the role. I mean, it was a darker version of the Joker. It was a more, it was really like a man's dive into insanity, right? And it was so different, and it was such a great film that Joker 2 was released this week, and I thought, man, I gotta watch it. Like, this is me, all written all over it. And they introduced Lady Gaga as a Harley Quinn. I knew the premise was this was going to have a lot of music in it, but I thought it was going to be done in a really interesting fashion, where it's like there are these two criminally insane people in an asylum, and they're living out their fantasies through music, right? I thought
I like the first one. What are you saying about the second one? Did it deliver? Was it too different? Did it lose you?
Well, this is the thing. I didn't go, and I didn't go because the reviews were terrible. And I'm normally not a guy that follows reviews, especially for superhero movies. I will go watch any movie. But the reviews were so bad. And, you talk about Rotten Tomatoes or whatever. The critic scores were like a 39, but the audience scores were just as bad. And normally I'm not swayed. Normally that won't dissuade me from putting down my money and watching a superhero movie or a comic book character on the big screen. But it got me. I want to ask you, do you let, like if you were going to a movie or picking up a movie on Netflix, and something you might have really wanted to watch when you heard it was coming out, and then you get the reviews, and it's like one after another of bad reviews. Are you just going to flush it, or are you going to still watch it?
You know what? I'm a review guy. From everything from restaurants to where I stay, where I travel, and what I watch. I am like, for me, if there's something I just have to see, I'm gonna see it. But if I have to take the family out and spend money on it, and I know it's going to be a disappointment, no, I probably wouldn't go. That doesn't mean I'm not going to catch it if I'm bored on a Saturday night sometime in February and it's on Netflix or Prime or something. Yeah, I'd watch it then. But no, I am. I'm not affected so much by the critics, because I find sometimes critics, if one critic says it's bad, then everybody says it's bad, and sometimes you see, and sometimes they're right, but sometimes you see that spread where critics hated it, the audience loved it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if everybody says don't waste your 2 hours, Bruno here says, I can't Joker 2, waste of time, just a moneymaker. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what? I tend to take people's advice and I'll save it till I can watch it for free some night on my own time. Maybe when I have my next cold that I'm taking a day off of work and I'm sitting there at 11 a.m. in the morning with nothing to do.
Yeah, and I'm generally like you. I rarely listen to the critics' reviews, especially when it comes to the superhero genre, because it just seems like that institution of Hollywood movie critics hate the genre of superhero movies. So I tend to stay away. But when the fans hate it, there's only one other movie that I haven't seen yet that at the time I was going to watch, but the audience hated it, was the Fantastic Four movie that was produced by Fox Studios a couple of years ago. Not the original two with Jessica Alba, but the one that came out a few years ago, but 20th Century Fox, I think it is. And yeah, it got terrible fan reviews. I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever will, because now they're rebooting the Fantastic Four. But this one, I decided not to go. But you know what? When you have coal, you can make diamonds. And me and my kids still went to watch a movie. We decided, since the reviews convinced me not to go to the Joker, say, well, what movie is getting a good review this week? And we saw Transformers 1. Now, Transformers 1 is the animated tale of how Optimus Prime, if you guys love Transformers, the hero, became Optimus Prime, and how Megatron became Megatron. And it's an animated show. So here I am. I'm going with my 13-year-old that's kind of like right on the brink, and then my 15-year-old who is expecting to go watch a killer movie. And he's walking, he's like, Dad, this is gonna suck. It's a kid.
We're gonna go see a cartoon.
Oh, Dad, there's gonna be no one there. It's gonna suck. But I'm like, Brett, the reviews are outstanding. It's got like a 90, I believe it had a 95% critic score and a 98 audience score. I'm like, Brett,
I'm gonna have to fact check you on that. Seriously, it was like that.
Check it up while I'm talking. And so it's really high. And I'm like, Brett, and he's like, Dad, what is it rated? It's probably really good for kids. I'm like, well, it's rated PG, so it's not a G movie. And anyhow, so we went to watch this movie in Sheldon. It was awesome. And Brett came out and he's like, Dad, that was a good movie. And like, when you think about the Transformers franchise, all the movies from Bumblebee to I think it was The Last Night, there's a whole bunch of them, right? This one stacks up. And the sign that it was a great movie, was that midway through, you don't really realize you're watching a cartoon. You're just enjoying the story. And Chris Hemsworth, who plays Thor, is the voice of Optimus Prime. I thought he did a fantastic job, and it was just well done. It was like a really good story. And I know you love the Transformers. Like, I know.
Listen, I talked about Gord Downey in the last segment.
Yeah.
Like, my next hero growing up had to have been Optimus Prime.
Yes.
I was a huge Transformers guy. And here's a fact check. Rotten Tomatoes was not 92%. It was 88%, which is for the critics, right? Which is outstanding. The fans, 98%. I've never even seen that before.
Very few movies. You know what? I'm going to ask you another question, Sheldon. Kit or Optimus Prime? Which one are you taking? Which one are you taking the driverless ride in?
All day long. Oh, man. I'll tell you, I was envious because as a kid, I always felt like I was, we had a good upbringing. We never struggled for food. We went to Disneyland a few times and traveled and all that stuff. But I always felt like I had maybe something missing from my childhood because my friends sometimes had the best toys. Yeah. My cousin had Optimus Prime. My best friend had Optimus Prime. I never had Optimus Prime. I got what's his name? The new Optimus Prime that replaced him when Optimus Prime died.
Rodimus Prime.
Rodimus Prime. I had Rodimus Prime, which was cool, but it wasn't Optimus Prime. You know what I mean?
You know what? I had an Optimus Prime, but I grew up in the G.I. Joe and Transformer time, and I remember the cereal boxes. You could save the UPC codes from the cereal boxes. If you collected enough, you could send away for a Transformer. I collected so many to get those Transformers, and I got the hooded Cobra Commander, by the way. But I loved the Transformers. And it made me, that movie, after watching it with my two boys, we have this grand plan that we're never going to enact, but that we want to watch all the Transformers movies now in chronological order, starting with Bumblebee, because if you watch them from when they were produced, it's not the same, right? So Bumblebee is the next one on the timeline after this Transformers one, but I promise you.
Oh, so Bumblebee happens after this episode. Transformers
Yeah.
1.
This one is literally how Optimus Prime becomes Optimus Prime, because he's not. They start off, him and Megatron start off as best friends, and they're mining robots.
I said, listen, no spoilers.
Yeah,
on
no
the ride
spoilers,
with
no
Chevy
spoilers.
and Nasty, right? But no spoilers here. But yeah, that's, I'll tell you what. So what gets me to watch a movie is when somebody I know that I respect their opinion on it says, you got to see this. I'm gonna go see it, right?
And you're gonna see all your favorites. I promise you're gonna see all your favorites. And it's like when you watch Star Wars and you're like, okay, the second one, Darth Vader becomes bad and all this, and then all of a sudden you get that prequel, the ones when Anakin was young.
Yeah.
But they do this one right. And I loved it. We had a great time. It's a great popcorn flick. It's not long. Sometimes you want a nice long epic movie, a la Lord of the Rings, a la Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just want an hour and 40 minutes. This one sits in that right spot where you can go enjoy and still get home early enough.
Chevy,
But
I'll tell you.
Speaking of
what,
early,
we are running out of time. But you brought up one other hot one
go
for
ahead.
me, and I've got to touch on this. But I'm giving you 40 seconds. You
Yeah, go.
brought up G.I. Joe.
Mm.
And for me, my childhood, all Transformers was number 1, but G.I. Joe was number 2. Living on a farm, you only got those cartoons once in a while, right? Who was your favorite G.I. Joe character?
Ooh, it's
40
hard
seconds.
because everybody loves Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. Those were the two, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say any others because those ones are always the first two to come. But I always like the good guys. I like Duke and Lieutenant Hawk and Falcon. But I gotta say Snake Eyes.
Snake Eyes for sure, but we'll go to our number 2s there as well. Then Scarlet, remember Scarlet?
Yeah,
the
Scarlet.
first badass heroine chick. Like she was
Yeah.
she with red hair. She was amazing too. But
no, I love the G.I. Joes. In fact, if I was able to walk, I have my box of original G.I. Joes right next to me that I took out for my girlfriend's son the other day. They're all in there. I could pull out a whole bunch. It's like it's literally just out of arm's reach, but I still have those because they were so popular to me. And for me, G.I. Joe was number 1. The movies sucked. I'm hoping they're actually making a Transformers G.I. Joe movie. Transformers number 2. But go watch that movie, Sheldon. You won't be disappointed. I'll watch it Tragically Hip. I know I won't be disappointed. And all of you guys, thanks for watching us tonight. We hope you weren't disappointed. Just be sure if you're taking a driverless cab tonight, you drive safe. You don't have a shot of Terramana before you get in your car. Thanks for liking our show. Be sure to follow us on all the socials. Trey, fantastic job producing the show. Sheldon, my man, way to show up. Way to hit the overtime. Guys, we love you. We're going to be back next week. Thanks for joining the ride.